What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So today we're going to take a look and listen to Representative Neal. He's going to be asking questions of the Social Security Commissioner, Mr. Bisignano, regarding Social Security and Social Security future. So that's what we're going to focus on in this video. But first off, you guys can do me a favor. Please like the video. If you're watching this video and you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel.
Commissioner, the wealthiest man in the world has called Social Security a Ponzi scheme. Do you agree with that assessment?
I think you said it was a promise to pay. I think I heard you say that earlier, sir. I agree it's a promise to pay.
Thank you. Let me also turn my focus to Doge again for a moment. Some of those at Doge have said that there are those who are 120 years old receiving Social Security checks. Do you know of anybody 120 years old that has received a Social Security check?
What I do know is that we had people who had passed away still active on our file. And I think that represents the opportunity for problem and error.
Right.
And I think that, having people on the file can cause, it's like leaving your door open, right? We don't leave our door open at night. Maybe just because I grew up in Brooklyn, we don't leave our door open. Where's Nikki? I don't want to insult her at all. But she's on Staten Island though. I'm allowed to joke around here, aren't I?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. So I think that's a real issue.
Okay.
That's a real issue, sir.
But is that
All right, so what I find so amusing, did not answer the question. Could have, the question is yes or no, so he didn't answer that. So obviously, people that are 120 years old are not receiving Social Security benefits, and you had some politicians out there saying that very thing, that people that are 120 years old or 150 years old are receiving Social Security benefits. That's not the case. What was going on is you had people that were still on the file over, that were 120 that were still showing up in the file, but the checks weren't going out to them. They just hadn't cleaned the list or whatever. Hey, look, I've stated this before. I work for government, so I understand sometimes things get kind of pushed off, and it's not immediate. It's not something that you need to take care of immediately. And so people just, they have them in a file, but it's not something that needs your urgent attention. I will tell you, in certain jobs, certain government jobs, you're constantly putting out fires. Your job is to put out fires. And I worked in law enforcement, so my job was to put out fires. And so when you have something like that, where you have a list of people who aren't receiving Social Security benefits, but they're still on this list, you put that aside because you have all this other stuff that needs your urgent attention. And in a lot of government agencies, they're understaffed, so they don't have people that can just go over. And, we used to have, sometimes we would have volunteers that would come in. Those volunteers would come in, and we would give volunteers that, jobs like that, where they can go and look at the list and say, okay, well, yeah, match the list with the person and say, oh, this person is 120 years old. Let's erase them from, take out that Social Security number and erase them from the whole system. And so I would have a volunteer take care of that. And then I would be focused on some of the stuff that needed to be taken care of right away. That was emergencies that need to be taken care of. So that does happen. Now, I understand what Bisignano is saying when he says, we could see problems, like he was giving the example of leaving your door open. That could be a situation where, let's say you have a Social Security number that's out there, and that individual is no longer with us. They're over 120 years old. They're showing on the file as over 120 years old, but that number, that Social Security number, is still there. That could be problematic because someone can get that Social Security number and use that Social Security number, even though that person is no longer here, because you have an active Social Security number. And so I get it. You need to do an audit. You need to purge those numbers so no one else can use the number. I understand that. But the people that are 120 years old receiving Social Security, that is what got everyone, fired up. because the American people are looking at that and say, well, how is that possible? Why are we just giving this money away to people who are 120 years old? But that wasn't what was going on. And so that is the problem. That is the problem. You get people all upset about something that is not happening.
That's different than suggesting that there's somebody 120 years old receiving a Social Security check, isn't it?
I mean, I made my statement, sir, that, there were millions of people on the file that had passed and their number was still alive.
Commissioner,
That's
an earlier statement by a member on the committee said that the Democrats were going to try to politicize the issue. What's more politicizing than suggesting there's somebody 120 years old getting a Social Security check when it's not
Exactly.
not true? There's nothing to it. There's no evidence that supports it. The efficiency of Social Security, the error ratio of Social Security ought to be one that is acknowledged. It ought to be a model for other federal initiatives. The loyalty that the employees feel to making sure that our seniors are able to receive an earned benefit which they've paid into all their lives should be a very important part of the discussion. Could I ask you as well, Commissioner, how many staffers from Doge are currently working at Social Security?
First, I'd like to react to, a fundamentally a hair less than 1% error rate, and I hear us talk about it's one. That's too high an error rate, sir.
Yeah, granted.
It's too high an error rate, and then secondarily, we would never compare, and we should never compare the amount of payout to the expense of the department. That's not a relevant measure.
Commissioner,
by any means. So I just want to be clear
that's fine.
about that.
I understand that. But Commissioner, again, then we go back to the argument that was heard on the House floor during the State of the Union address that there were 150-year-olds receiving Social Security checks. And then it was brought down to 120-year-olds receiving Social Security checks. My argument is that overwhelmingly, this is one of the most well-supported initiatives that the American people have come to rely upon and depend upon. So could we go back to the question of how many Doge staffers are working currently at your office?
I treat everybody like they work in SSA, in all honesty. I run the administration here.
Yeah.
And I have complete oversight. We have 7,000 contractors that do not work for SSA in the organization working. And I actually have
Could we get an idea of how many Doge employees are on the payroll?
I don't think of people as Doge employees, but if you're saying how many, it's probably about 3 or 4.
3 or 4.
But there's no such thing as Doge employees.
Okay, do they have access to any of this sensitive, critical information
No, sir.
that they might be able to retrieve?
No, sir.
Let me ask the last question here, and that is, the meeting that you and I had, I thought went really well.
Me too.
And we are committed on this side of the aisle to defending and increasing Social Security benefits as the years go forward. People are going to live longer, and they're going to need enhanced benefits as we proceed. And part of it is going to come from the discussions that we're going to have here. And we all know in the end what part of the solution is going to be on this committee. So I thank you, Commissioner. I yield back my time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so that was Representative Neal. So you heard that last part that he was talking about there. Expanding Social Security, improving Social Security, reform, that's what he was getting to. I wish he would have asked that question of Mr. Bisignano, but he was just making a statement at the end. And so when it comes to Social Security, I'm glad that he did mention that, but I wished he would have asked a question to Mr. Bisignano. I want to see what Bisignano has to say about reform. How does he think Social Security should be reformed? So hopefully we'll have one of these Congress people will ask that question, but until then, we'll just have to wait. Now, something interesting, too, that he said, 3 or 4 people, Doge employees, or if you want to call it Doge, like he didn't want to differentiate Doge between the other contractors that work for the Social Security Administration. But he said 3 or 4, which is not very many. And then he said that they didn't have access to sensitive information, which is not what we're hearing. And so either we're going to believe Mr. Bisignano or, what I find interesting is the courts, this has gone to the court. So we know what's going through the courts and how they're talking about, okay, well, yes, we can let Doge have access to this, but they can't have access to that, or they can't, they can read it, but they can't like download it, the information and all this stuff. So we know they do have some access, but Mr. Bisignano is saying, no, they don't have any access at all. So I'll let you be the judge in the comments below. Let me know what you think about that. But I think we could say we learned a little bit more about how things are being run right now when it comes to Social Security and the Social Security Administration. If you guys have questions, let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye. So that's all we have for this video. Make sure if you guys want to send me an email, you can do that, david@thetecshow.com. Like the video, subscribe for more, and check out these videos over here for some more great content. Talk to you later. Bye.